time, global integration is also important. Strategic technology partnerships, open innovation platforms, and science diplomacy must ensure that India is not merely a consumer but a co-architect of global standards and protocols. The recent establishment of the Anusandhan National Research Foundation, ANRF, and today unveiled by Honorable Prime Minister the rupees 1 lakh crore RDI scheme presents a moment of strategic transition in India's science and technology journey. These initiatives are not merely financial instruments, they are structural enablers designed to operationalize the very framework we seek to strengthen. By design, these mechanisms shift India's innovation strategy from short-term fragmented projects to mission mode programs with clear outcomes, timelines, and national relevance. They ensure that innovation is sustained through predictable funding, long-term research agendas, and institutional continuity. This allows scientists, startups, and industries to take calculated risks, pursue deep tech development, and build capabilities that mature over time. In a sense, these mechanisms operationalize the very ethos of Viksit Bharat 2047, a future where India's scientific advancement is continuous, collaborative, and strategically aligned with national development goals. Today, our esteemed panelists are leading thought leaders from academia, industry, foundations, and academies. In discussion with them, our aim is identifying the levers, partnerships, and pathways that will transform India's innovation landscape so that by 2047, we are not just a developed nation but a deeply inventive one. This panel will happen in 3 parts, 3 minutes intervention by each panelist and the 2 minutes for the closing thoughts. With that, I am pleased to introduce our esteemed panelists to this distinguished gathering. May I kindly invite each of you to take your designated seats on the dais in the order displayed on the screen. I have great pleasure in inviting Professor Ashok Jhunjhunwala, Professor at IIT Madras, a pioneer of industry-academia collaboration in India. He is the visionary founder of the IITM Research Park. He has incubated and nurtured over 350 startups and led the Tenet Group in developing affordable innovations across telecom, energy, and electrical vehicles. Second panelist, Professor Govind Rangarajan, Director of the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, and a distinguished mathematician. He brings decades of academic leadership and global research excellence to this forum. A fellow of India's premier science academies, he continues to champion interdisciplinary research and institutional innovation at the highest level. Now, I have great pleasure in inviting Lieutenant General Madhuri Kanetkar, a distinguished pediatric nephrologist with over 39 years of service in the Army Medical Corps, a decorated medical educator and strategic leader, champions students' welfare, institutional excellence, and national innovation as a member of the Prime Minister's Science, Technology and Innovation Advisory Council. I have now great pleasure in inviting Shri Baba Kalyani, Chairman and Managing Director of Bharat Forge Limited and a visionary leader in advanced manufacturing and industrial innovation. With over 5 decades of transformative leadership, he has positioned Bharat Forge as a global benchmark in precision engineering while championing self-reliance in defense, inclusive development, and India's rise as a technology-driven economy. He is also a member of the PM ESTIC. Next, I invite Dr. Pawan Goenka, Chairperson of the InSpace and a distinguished leader who has steered Mahindra's R&D transformation to pioneering space reforms and private sector participation and continues to drive India's technological and industrial leadership. Next, I have great pleasure in inviting Dr. Soumya Swaminathan, Chairperson of the MS Swaminathan Research Foundation, a globally respected pediatrician and public health leader. She has spent over 4 decades translating research into impactful health programs and now focuses on climate-linked health challenges, nutrition security, and science-informed policy for equitable development. And now, last but not the least, Shri J.D. Patil, President, Indian National Academy of Engineering, and a distinguished technocrat. He has led India's private sector forays into defense, aerospace, and strategic technologies over a 5-decade career at L&T. He has contributed to India's self-reliance in defense, aerospace, and mentored next-generation technology enterprises and continues to shape India's space and engineering ecosystem through key national leadership roles. As I mentioned, we will start the first round of discussion with each panelist sharing their insights in a 3-minute response, and then we'll have the second round followed by closing reflections with recommendations in 2 minutes. So let me pose the question to Professor Ashok Jhunjhunwala. How can India's higher education institutions, with which you are deeply involved over the last few decades, evolve into agile innovation hubs that translate research into scalable technologies, bridge the lab to market gap, and build sovereign capabilities in emerging domains while staying globally collaborative?
Thank you very much. I will take this up and talk about how the strategy to take technology leadership by India. India has not just an educational institute, but in R&D labs and some in private industry. There are 150,000 scientists. Many of them are extremely good, very good publication, patents, but not enough commercialization. We also have very good young talent. If nurtured, they can do wonders in the form of startups. The strategy that I would suggest that we need to take, that India with its size and diversity has many impossible problems to solve. And I'll talk about some of these problems that need unique solution. For example, our cities are extremely congested. Whether it is Chennai or Bangalore or Pune or Delhi, traveling 15 kilometers take 1 hour 15 minutes. We are wasting 2.5 hours on road, sir. If this is what we are going to do in the next 25, 50 and 100 years, I don't think we can become the world leader. Similarly, with erratic rainfall increasing because of GHG emissions, what we are finding is that we are getting 2 to 3 times, maybe more number of times waterlogging, causing immense number of harm. We need to find a solution. A totally different problem. Our cyber security, we cannot depend on anyone else. Yesterday, day before yesterday, I was told that this small device that cleans our homes and moves around, the small robots, sends all the data to some company in China. The data that they take from every home. With this kind of situation, how do we get there? We need to really have our own solution. We need to solve these and address similar problems and in the process to become the world leader. What is the approach? Individual scientists, however great, can only go so far in solving complex problems. Therefore, what we need is a consortium driven by a technologist, a economist, and a operations person. They need to assemble 7 to 10 scientists across the country. Does not matter where they are. They may be in CSR lab, they may be in one IIT, they may be in one of the smaller institutes. And couple them with 8, 10, 15 startups and join hands with industry. Only such consortiums will be able to solve the kind of problems that I am talking about. Only those kind of efforts will take India to technology leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Jhunjhunwala, for laying the roadmap. Let me now come to Professor Govind Rangarajan. Professor Rangarajan, what concrete steps must India's top research institutions should take to turn deep tech, deep scientific knowledge into breakthrough innovations that directly serve national priorities by 2047, if not earlier?
Thank you. Yeah, it's sort of a puzzle. We have a lot of deep innovation, deep science and technology discoveries coming out of Indian educational institutions. Why don't they get converted to products? One key barrier is identifying the correct product to market fit. And the other is to have a framework which will enable all this translation and productization to be done. As far as the latter part is concerned, I mean, the Honorable PM announced the RDI fund. We also have innovation hubs. Those probably can take care of the latter part. As far as the first part is concerned, what we lack is a core team that can identify the product market fit. And, if you want to, there are few, higher education institutions where such a team is available, but that is not common. If you want to scale it up to all HEIs, you need to develop this core team. So one possibility is for HEIs to create a postgraduate program in technological innovation, where you have an entrepreneur in residence who can be paired with a faculty mentor and industry expert in innovation, technological innovation. And the goal of this entrepreneur in residence would be to find a product mix which will fit to the market. And once a product market fit is found, then one can go to the next level of funding, etc. But I think without this core team, it's going to be very difficult. Also, parallelly, one can also encourage translational sabbaticals for faculty, where they can spend some time in industry, especially focusing, even startups, especially focusing on productization. And one can also, it's also equally important to have a parallel translational faculty career path, because otherwise the career path itself, which is there, the traditional career path forces you to publications and so on. So if you have to have a parallel translational career path available for faculty members. And also we may probably have to require faculty to work on immediate problems like Professor Jhunjhunwala stressed, and also work backwards in 2047, where do we want to be? And based on where we want to be, we have to do some things now, and those initial steps need to be taken. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Rangarajan. Well said, and I see a lot of synergy between the two inputs which have come. Let me now turn to health, a so important part in our life. So, Lieutenant General Madhuri Kanitkar, health innovation is central to national development. What structural and ethical frameworks are needed to integrate clinical research, digital health, and indigenous technologies into a cohesive innovation ecosystem?
Thank you so much, Professor Sood. We all know health is wealth, but are we investing enough in health to really look at generating wealth? And I think it is very important, like beautifully worded, is structural and ethical framework. I think there's a huge structural framework change required, because the gaps between the urban and the rural, the gaps between the cities and the villages, these need to be filled up only with technology. And this requires an integration of systems and institutions. When we talk of whether it's indigenous systems of medicine and modern medicine, we need to integrate them. But besides that, I think the ethical part is very, very important, especially in this day of AI, which is really coming in a big way. We need to safeguard trust of the people. We need to have public value, because in research, in innovations, we're using public money. Are they getting value? Are we being inclusive? Is it reaching the last mile? I think those are very, very important. And in that, when we look at the structural changes, when you come to clinical research, I find the biggest gap is medical education is occurring in medical colleges. Innovations and things are happening mostly in institutions, engineering institutions. Research in health is happening in labs by scientists, and public health is happening in the primary health centers and civil hospitals, and the three don't talk to each other. So like you correctly said, we need to break those silos first and bring in a structure where the three can work together. When it comes to innovations, we need to bring in the pharma industry. Most of the health universities have kept pharma out of it. Life sciences, pharmacology, in engineering, bioinstrumentation, all this have to be combined in NEP, and I think that is the way. For digital technology, we are advancing in a big way, but the applications are not taking the stakeholders in confidence. The healthcare providers are not becoming part of understanding and accepting it. So we need to see how to do capacity building there, and then have a UPI-like system, a dashboard, plug and play, where the provider and the receiver has something to get out of it. It will then be adopted. Most important, when we develop clusters, we need to have a combination between the center and the states. They need to do a handshake where health and education have been kept as state subjects and not concurrent. So I think these would be, so if you're looking at Bio E3 missions, we need to have these center and state-led clusters, region-wise, so that we solve local problems for global needs. I think that would be the way, and we too, as thought leaders, would need to imagine, innovate, and inspire the youngsters. Thank you so much.
So well connected to the theme of this ESTIC. Thank you very much. Let me now turn to Baba Kalyani. From the lens of industry-led R&D, what are the critical enablers to become product nation? What shifts are needed for MSMEs and large enterprises to co-create meaningfully with academia and startups? Baba.
Well, thank you, Professor Sood, for inviting me here for this high-powered panel, nurturing R&D and innovation ecosystem in India as we pursue our ambition for a Viksit Bharat. Firstly, we must acknowledge that the road towards Viksit Bharat in this digital era can be traversed only through large-scale industrialization steered by science, technology, and innovation. This is the only roadmap for developed India. In the next 25 years, India aspires to grow double-digit economy, growth trajectory, 8x growth in GDP, from a $4 trillion to a $35 trillion economy, and a 15x growth in manufacturing, up from approximately about $500 to $600 billion today to almost $7.5 trillion by 2047. Like several large countries, the United States, Germany, Japan, Korea, and more importantly, our neighbor, China, such a massive transformation and transition is only possible by transforming the economy from a factor-driven economy to an innovation-driven economy, into a product nation with strong emphasis on design and made in India products seen across sectors, whether it's large industries, whether it's MSMEs, whether it's medium industries. Germany has huge amount of MSMEs, but those MSMEs are bigger than our large industries in many cases. My slide here depicts enablers that are meant to accelerate this massive transition. First of all, a strong focus on creating and developing intellectual property. Indian IP, which is powered by design-led thinking. As a country, we simply stay content with the mastery of know-how and focus less on know-why. It is important to leverage science, scientific research to understand both know-how and know-why. And in everything we do, wherever we manufacture, we must also design in India. The hallmark of thriving any R&D and innovation ecosystem, whether it's Silicon Valley ecosystem in the US or a thriving Chinese ecosystem or that in Israel, is excellent confluence and availability of low-risk capital and high-end talent. We must retain our best scientists and talent in India and reverse the brain drain from the West back to India. Third is strengthen foundational capabilities. Thanks to the Honorable Prime Minister Modi, India is finally putting a slew of imperatives to strengthen foundational capabilities. We heard him this morning talk about it, such as semiconductors, electronics, materials, minerals, science and technology. He even talked about the blue ocean technologies. We are dwelling in a dynamic world with massive technological achievements and advancements in a digital and AI era. Needless to mention, a large pool of digitally AI-equipped resources is an important imperative and critical to enable to drive large-scale economic and industry transformation. Industry-led applied research and pre-commercial R&D. We are making this transition. The RDI fund is an example, but basically the rich scientific and technical ecosystem comprising our labs, the DRDO lab, the CSR labs, the IITs, the NITs, and Indian Institute of Science, all this must come together to work in tandem with Indian industry to drive applied research and development. There are many such models in the West that we can look at. Lastly, this is something I have personally experienced, open and agile mode of research and innovation. Some large companies like IKEA, Microsoft, NASA as an organization, OpenAI amongst others, harness the power of large group thinkers dispersed across the planet to drive innovation and provide ideas. This is called crowdsourcing of innovation.
Thank you so much for really telling this. So let me now turn to Pawan Goenka ji. With the opening of India's space sector to private players, what lessons can be drawn for building innovation ecosystems in other strategic domains? Over to you.
Thank you, Professor Sood. I would like to say that space is one of the very few sectors where India is among the top few when it comes to R&D and innovation in the whole world. And this has been led up to now primarily by ISRO. But now in the last 3-4 years, we have seen an expansion of the innovation ecosystem where the private sector and academia are beginning to play a very big role. And innovation in some sense is getting democratized in the space sector. And it has all happened a combination of various factors that all of the panelists have talked about, what will lead to innovation ecosystem development. Started off with the space reforms and the policy enablement that were announced by Government of India. The big enabler is existence of ISRO, which has a deep legacy of innovation and unbelievable infrastructure for R&D. Something that people from outside won't even imagine how deep the infrastructure goes in ISRO, and that's a very big enabler. The third is the access to ISRO facilities then to everyone else. And also, space is not a sector where innovation has reached a steady state, where everything that can be done has been done, there is a lot more that can be done in space. So even though it's a 60-year-old sector, but it's still a sunrise sector when it comes to R&D and innovation. And therefore, heavy interest of academia in innovation. And very important point is that there is a huge commercial potential in the space sector. And therefore, the startups are taking very big interest in this. And finally, I guess in some sense, having an entity like InSpace also helps to put everything together and align everyone to that deep innovation ecosystem, as well as to bring economic benefit in the space sector. So all in all, I will say that the space sector is in some sense an example of how in a specific sector innovation ecosystem can be created, led by an entity like ISRO, which has that deep knowledge and deep expertise, and then spread across the Indian universe of academia as well as private sector. And I would like to say that the startups in the space sector, almost every one of them is a deep tech startup. And therefore, if you go around in any of the startup exhibition in space, or even here, there are 2 or 3, you will find that they really are doing truly path-breaking R&D work with very early starting point and a lot of support coming from the various agencies, both within the government and outside the government. Thank you.
Thank you, so very well said, and I'm sure the space example will be a motivation for other sectors like defense, atomic energy, and so on. And I think we really have much more space to travel in that direction. And I'm saying the lessons learned from InSpace would really go a long way. So now let me turn to Dr. Soumya Swaminathan. Reflecting on your global and national leadership in health research, what are the critical ingredients for building resilient, inclusive, and evidence-driven innovation ecosystems?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Sood. And I think many of the reflections of the panelists are actually converging on some common themes. The 3 words that you mentioned, resilience, inclusion, and grounding in evidence, they are the very foundation of innovation. So I believe that, maybe 3 areas that I'd like to touch on, which I believe can help us deliver science for societal good. The first is collaboration across boundaries. This has been mentioned by people, but by boundaries I mean between departments, between ministries, between private and public sector and NGOs, as well as civil society, and also cross-boundary. There are many problems today that face us, where as a region we should be collaborating more. Globally we need to be collaborating more. And this unlocking of innovation, I think, in a true sense, to really have an impact can only happen when this type of true collaboration occurs across, the different boundaries. The second is a focus on evidence and data. I think that, for science to drive improvements in society, we have to constantly be looking at data. So we need institutions which are strong, which collect data on a regular basis, like through surveys, for example. We need also social science research, and all of this needs to feed into policy making. So transparent and consistent reporting and using data will not only improve policy action, but it also improves public trust. So I would really make a pitch, and again for integrated data systems, not siloed data systems. And the third area is equity and the people-centered design, where the people or the end user, the stakeholders need to be involved from the very beginning. Very often we make sometimes a mistake that we develop something and take it to people or take it to the end user and find that there was a design issue in it because we had not taken those inputs from the very beginning. So participatory knowledge creation, where the traditional knowledge and wisdom of whether it is farmers or whether it's our frontline health workers, they are the ones with the real practical knowledge. And so scientists must work hand in hand with them as essential parts of the R&D continuum. And I would just mention 3 other facilitating things that could happen. One, I think, has been mentioned, that rather than fragmented project-based funding, We should have mission mode funding, where you bring together all the different actors and players, for example, in health, health, nutrition, agriculture, the women and child development. They all have to work together in order to address the nutrition security issue that the Prime Minister did flag in his speech today. We should also not forget that implementation, research and social science are very important. I know we're here with the ESTIC and led by the DST, but social science is also a science, and because India is such a large and diverse country, the social sciences, behavioral sciences can actually really contribute a lot, again, in taking research data and evidence and actually having an impact on public health. And then finally, we need ethical foresight. With all these emerging technologies we are talking about, we need, again, a discussion amongst people about what are the ethical and social issues that we are likely to face with AI, with all of the digital tools that we're using, but also with the huge advances in biotechnology and genomics that can really transform.
Thank you very much.
For the better. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let me now come to Shri J.D. Patil. Engineering innovation underpins infrastructure, defense and energy transformation. What strategic shifts are needed in engineering education and R&D to meet the aspirations of Viksit Bharat 2047?
When we talk of any of these deep domains, on a cliche, we have the most innovative minds in the country, but an extremely poor employability. And this is essentially when we start talking of how to focus on some of these domains and make the basic changes at our education level. What we see clearly is the few areas we need to focus, because as a broadband we try and change and make everything different or everything to be changed. It will not happen. Now I see a clear convergence between what Baba talked about on semiconductors, advanced electronics. So we need to focus on very clearly translational aspect, because that will bring in the economies and the economic scale. Second most important point to drive into our R&D ecosystem, again for the economy part, is the R&D to GDP ratio. We have it quite low in India. I'm not trying to suggest only government needs to do it. NRF, which today just got announced as RDI, is one aspect of it. The second aspect we probably are not doing enough is on rewarding and promoting the risk-taking ability of industry. In some form, this used to be present long back, but then no longer. And this is essentially where some small tweaking of policies can actually make a lot of that money coming into innovation and in R&D. Obviously, we need to focus on futuristic technologies to be able to drive, and talent and skill development, as I talked about. The improvement of the employability becomes extremely important. Standardization to some extent of our education is not there in India, and that would make an enormous amount of difference on what are the model ways of doing things, so that not only employability, the R&D innovation ecosystem thrives. Specifically, when we talk of any deep domain take, the indigenously designed, developed manufacturing alone guarantees strategic autonomy. Now this is when, if it comes to defense, we know that what we have, the enemy doesn't know. And that strategic aspect is extremely important to be able to win. Second, each and every capability what we build in through our own innovation, nobody in the world knows. And this is where you create a winner. And that's essentially where it becomes extremely important that we promote that indigenously designed, developed aspect. Not only part of the data going out, it is extremely well catalogued all over the world about each and every equipment, and that's essentially where it becomes extremely important. Our students and education, people who are still within education needs to actually be oriented to be able to do this far more through the lens of the translation.
Thank you very much. So we heard all the 7 panelists, lot many thoughts on this. So let me go to the second round so that you can dwell on it after listening to the other co-panelists. So Professor Ashok Jhunjhunwala, I'll start with you. What institutional reforms and funding models, especially through mechanisms of Anusandhan National Research Foundation and RDI Fund, can make India's R&D ecosystem more outcome-oriented and inclusive? How can we scale deep tech innovation from Tier 1 institution to Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities as well? Over to you.
Thank you, sir. There is a misconception that elite educational institutes alone can design, develop and innovate. India's talent is very widespread. Even the smallest college, private or public, produce at least a few very, very bright youngsters. What is needed is that they need to be nurtured with a bit of inspiration and push, they can do wonders. I give you examples. Last year I met Divyam Kashyap from Muzaffarnagar and Aditya Singh from Prayagraj, from Chandigarh University. They decided that they want to do something in rockets. They learned basics from using NPTEL course. They were mentored by a retired ISRO scientist. They started designing rocket. They failed 13 times. Anybody would have given up. They did not. They succeeded 14 times and now they have a startup and designing a 25 kilonewton engine. There is another person from Surat, went to a software institute, name I had not even heard, did very well in software, but got bored after a year or two. All hardware is imported. What is the use of doing all this when everything is imported? I want to make India a leader in hardware. And he decided to make FPGA-based systems and today has a very, very strong R&D startup on that. Yet another person, Vishwanath, developing an affordable and efficient quad bike customized for small and medium farmer sitting in Shimoga in Karnataka. And finally, a professor in a Tier 3 institute inspired 2 youngsters. And they got together and they said they will actually make satellite propulsion system. They found out that all the satellite propulsion system are highly toxic. They jumped into it and now they are getting there. Well, I would like to end by sort of saying, I had mentioned about creating consortiums for solving problems. Such consortium attempting to take technology leadership should include academia and startups from these Tier 2, Tier 3 institutions. And finally, I'd like to point out, and this is something to you, ANRF and RDI, ANRF in particular, too focused on government institutions. I think you should move away from limiting yourself to funding large and governmental institutions. There are many, many institutes all around the country which are doing as well. If you don't move and say that you will treat them equally, you will not get anywhere. Even colleges like IIIT Bangalore are not considered equal to the IITs and other institutes. I come from IIT, but I know these small colleges actually produce gems. Thank you.
Thank you. Well said, and I can assure you that in ANRF and RDI fund, there is no such boundaries. And in fact, the PAIR program which has been launched and the other programs do address, we have to scale it up. Coming to Professor Govind Rangarajan, to secure India's leadership in frontiers research amid rapid advances in AI and automation, what specific strategies should our institution adopt to reskill scientific talent, create global research pathways, and ensure inclusive long-term participation in cutting-edge innovations?
Thank you. I think AI is going to have a huge impact, irrespective of the hype around artificial general intelligence. One of the key requirements is to create a future-ready students, and so AI has to pervade the entire curriculum across all subjects. That is one of the things we need to do. But for that to happen, we need faculty who are trained in these areas, in all the frontier tech areas, including AI. And for that, we really need something to be done, a faculty development mission on national basis. Otherwise, we are not going to be able to train them, even though AI itself can help in training students. And we also need to enable students to use AI tools for the research and for any frontier tech areas. And for that, one possibility is to consider AI automated discovery labs, whether discovery labs in drug research or discovery labs in materials research. So these really accelerate the pace of R&D, and they would be very critical in India, achieving huge progress in this on all these frontier tech areas. And regarding global partnerships, I think we should move away from just these student exchanges and MOU signings, etc. And we really need to set up joint research labs where we complement each other's strengths, so that we have a focus on which we, and a foundation on which we develop further things. And without that, I think it's just mainly some visits and nothing much happens out of it. We also, as has been mentioned several times, we need to attract the world's best researchers to work in frontier tech areas. So we could have some sort of a national frontier tech fellowships. I know the Ministry of Education is thinking of some program where, scheme where they can attract the best from across the world. So that is something which, is really required. And we also need small things like permitting faculty to work in industries during summers. Because now many of, even though that happens in some of the good institutions, but in many of the second tier and third tier institutions, the rules are very rigid. And so they are not permitted to go and work in industries. Because now a lot of data, a lot of computing resources are available in the industry. So it's very important that that is also, done by all the institutions. So I think, on the whole, we need therefore some sort of infrastructure, a national R&D infrastructure. We have made a great start with the AI mission, which is creating all those GPUs. But as they say, dil mange more. So we need more GPUs. We want to compete with the world's best. And we need to create our own GPUs, our own neuromorphic computing devices, something which we are doing at IIC and so on. So these are things which would keep us at the frontier of technology and innovation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Govind Rangarajan. Let me now come to Lieutenant General Madhuri Kanetkar. As India positions itself to lead globally in healthcare innovation, what transformative role can medical universities play in integrating clinical insights with indigenous technologies, mentoring clinician innovators, and building scalable models that serve both national health priorities and global markets?
Thank you so much. I think India, with its 60% population below 35 years, health is one area where the global south will provide for the global north with their aging populations, and innovations is the way forward. And I think health universities are a huge goldmine waiting to be explored. And I can speak from experience, having transferred from center and a tier 1 to a tier 2, tier 3, and going down to the rural colleges. I think what we need to is transform these colleges and patient care hospitals into innovation ecosystems which blend clinical wisdom, scientific rigor, and entrepreneurship capabilities. So for this, these gold mines are waiting to be tapped, because what they lack is the huge number of state health universities. I'll take a leaf from Dr. Jhunjhunwala. I think there's huge amount of talent and potential there, and the aspirations on the youth is phenomenal. And they can find solutions which are AFAS, affordable, feasible, acceptable, sustainable. And that is what the world is going to look at India for. And in this, I would like to share a small experience of where we at the university where I went as Vice Chancellor imagined, innovated and inspired to create something to get out of the rigidity of structured courses and structured conducted by councils. We set up a Section 8 company convincing the state health government called Chakra, because Chakra is a hub and spoke. Chakra is there in our flag. Chakra is controls in the Ayurveda systems. And Chakra is an acronym for Company of Health, Applied Knowledge and Research with Autonomy. And this is being created exactly on the lines of with KPIs, deliverables and performance based, with permitting faculty and students to move in and out of the company along with their continuous job. So we've created such a structure, and in that I won't take full detail, but we have digital health which Soumya mentioned. We've got in a skill AR/VR lab, simulation, faculty development, all these are created, and therefore data science can be implemented. As far as innovators, I think we need to provide them free access and movement for innovators to come into our health system. They need the test beds to test them out with validity and ethical systems. And then we could create clinicians who are MD, PhDs, who could take this forward in a new way. I think that's the way forward.
Thank you for exemplifying by examples. That goes a long way. And now let me turn to Baba Kalyani. How can instruments like RDI fund be strategically leveraged to de-risk deep tech innovation and catalyze industry-led R&D? The ball is in your court now.
Yeah, thank you. I described the enablers that are critical in forming R&D and innovation ecosystem in India. The R&D fund, the Research Development and Innovation Fund instituted by the Government of India, is an excellent platform for this. What it will do is provide low-cost, high-risk capital that will bring in a large pool of scientific talent. What most of the speakers here have talked about, 60% of our population is below the age of 30, and there is a lot of talent in that population. And this will bring that talent out. A platform that congregates industry, public sector, scientific and technical institutions, startups and entrepreneurs. And this is what will usher in a Silicon Valley type experience in Bharat, in different cities. I personally believe that we have once in a lifetime chance to make this happen. What are the imperatives for this? We need to align with global megatrends, stay relevant into the evolving technical advancements which are progressing in a dizzying space. I think they are progressing in a dizzying space, but if you look at it in a simplistic manner, it's only three things. It's IoT, digital and AI. Similarly, where we develop and create intellectual property, our own intellectual properties, while we develop India's future, whether it's a future jet engine, a future fighter aircraft, or a future nuclear submarine, we need to develop our own systems. Identify where India has a latent advantage, where a whole of a nation approach in areas where India has a right to win. I'll give you one simple example. Two-wheelers. We are the largest producers of two-wheelers in India, in the world. We make something like 30 million, 35 million two-wheelers. If we had taken a policy, if we make a policy to make all two-wheelers electric, the whole industry for electrification will become fantastically competitive and fantastically large, and it is desegregated manufacturing. So that manufacturing will go into small towns and small areas. The last point I'd like to make is leverage the RDI fund and let's develop enough academia-industry cooperation and government-led models to eliminate the value of death syndrome. This is one of the biggest problems we have in most of our research organizations. We need this funding to go from TRL level 6 to TRL level 8, 9. And that will unleash some tremendous amount of, innovation energy that is sitting idle right now. Lastly, and I've said this many times, research efforts will have failures. We must learn to accept failures, but we must have the ability to acknowledge what's important and what we have learned from these failures so that we move on to the next level and do better things. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Well said. Just to reiterate what Baba Kalyani was saying, RDI fund is industry-led. And ANRF fund, as it stands now, is academia-led, or the national lab, all included. So I think it's a beautiful synergy in these two big pillars for R&D which government has created, and now we have to see how all of us can really contribute towards making a product nation. Now let me come to Pawan Goenka ji. How can regulatory frameworks and public-private partnerships be optimized to foster high-risk, high-reward R&D?
Thank you, Dr. Sood. So, space R&D is by definition high risk. Everything that is anyone doing is high risk because the revenue is not clear, success is not guaranteed. And therefore, a lot of enablement has to be done in many cases by the government through multiple methods. PPP, as we know it, generally like in highways and all, is just one way, but the way we try to help in high-risk R&D for space is multiple different things that we're trying to do. For example, it's a simple transfer of technology from ISRO to private sector at a fraction of the cost that it takes to develop the technology, and a technology that's already proven by ISRO over the years, is a very big enablement for starting the base for the high-risk R&D, where private sector then takes it forward to the next level of R&D. For example, providing final support, obviously, because for deep tech startups, there's not as much funding available as it is for the marketplace kind of startups, and therefore Government of India itself has done 1,000 crore VC fund specifically for space startups, which will start in the next few weeks, I hope. The third is the financial support that we provide through PPP funding. Also very important is to create infrastructure which is very high cost and provide access to the companies at a pay-per-use basis, so that they don't have to invest a lot of money in capex, also helps in a big way. I've given an example of 2 or 3 specific things that we have done on this slide. A very big thing for space is availability of orbital slots. And we have enabled one orbital slot to move from ISRO to a private sector company, which will then enable them to do that satellite work that hitherto was done only by ISRO. Second is an Earth observation constellation that we have done in PPP mode. Again, for the first time, a private sector company will be creating a startup, a constellation like this, where Government of India is providing a lot of enablement in doing so. And third is Technology Adoption Fund, which we have started, where we are taking TRL3 technology to TRL8 technology and providing funding for that to move them out of that valley of death, as it's called. So what I would like to say is that basically our intervention is very focused and directed, identifying specific areas where the R&D will pay fruit, and determining what are the gaps that exist today. Could be technology, could be infrastructure, could be money, and provide all of that support through existing government facilities. Thank you.
Thank you. I think space is a very good example which you said. It has enabled many of these. Now let me come to Dr. Soumya Swaminathan. As India takes a larger role in shaping the global S&T agenda, how can it leverage science diplomacy to ensure the global South's voice is equitably represented while also advancing India's strategic and economic interests?
Yes, thank you for that question. I believe that in today's world, science is diplomacy, because the countries that are leading in science, they are actually shaping the rules of the global economy, whether it's in climate or health. I think India is in a very unique position because it can leverage its position between the global north and the global south and be a trusted voice, actually, and an intermediary for both sides, and thereby help to solve global challenges. So when we are doing all this to building our own scientific momentum to addressing our national priorities, I think at the same time, if we can foster partnerships with other countries that will deliver solutions for the world or for the region, and that way then we start influencing diplomacy on really globally important challenges, whether it's around climate, whether it's around pandemic preparedness or intellectual property. So, for example, we could build partnerships around shared priorities like air pollution, in this region in South Asia, on tuberculosis, on climate resilience, on how to deal with extreme heat. We can think of many areas, climate resilient agricultural technologies, where we would do very well to actually collaborate with others, because then we're able to contextualize these technologies for different countries, whether it's the global south or the global north. Now, to do this, I think we need to step up our game a little bit in terms of both scientists developing the skills to communicate and actually be diplomats for the country, but also the diplomatic force. They have to also be able to communicate science, but also understand and grab the opportunities in the countries where there are things which could benefit us. So I believe that India only has 4 scientific counselors in our councils around the world, in our embassies around the world. Why can we not increase that number? We need to have a lot more fellowships, but as Professor Rangarajan said, I think it's not just go spend some time and come back. When I was at the WHO, I saw that many countries actually sponsor their early to mid-career health professionals to go and work in WHO for 2 years. We have the FAO, we have UNEP, we have many multilateral organizations which are technical in nature. Our scientists can benefit a lot from that kind of exposure to what's happening at the global level and learn those diplomatic skills. So I think, DST, DBT, ICMR, INSA, the science academies can foster such relationships with the similar institutions in other countries. But again, it has to be built on basically shared trust, on agreements on data sharing, agreements on authorship. All those things must be discussed upfront. But I think it is going to be both within the country and global partnerships that can make India the leader, not only for ourselves, but the global south.
Thank you so much. See, I just happy to tell you that one of your suggestion regarding the science counselor, it's already happening, I am told, and the number will be substantially increased. So it is like before you even said, it has been thought, but very well said, and I think this is the way we need to see how we can really think ahead and really do the needful. Thank you for making that suggestion. Now let me come to Mr. Patil. We know that India aims to lead in global manufacturing value chains. Now the question is, how can professional academies and platforms such as ANRF, RDI fund and private funding mechanisms play a strategic role in nurturing indigenous R&D, fostering cross-sectoral innovation and mentoring the next generation of technologists to build a globally competitive industrial network ecosystem?
Thank you, Dr. Sood, for this wonderful question. When I think of India as an economy, we need to be shifting very sizably towards manufacturing, primarily because far more number of jobs get created, the multiplier actually remains within the country. When I look at if we do the routine manufacture the way it was in the past, we'll probably go nowhere, and that's essentially where we need to start looking at the more modern methods. The intellectual ability of India can truly get leveraged through robotics, through Industry 4.0, digital twins and things like that. And this is essentially when we start spending our efforts on advanced manufacturing, we can create a huge amount of difference. Fundamentally, for anything to succeed, we know simple management principle of 3 M's: the machines, the men, the money. And what you asked me precisely deal with all the 3. The machines in the form of what we use for manufacturing, the money in the form of the RDI, as well as unleashing the private capital. I said about some amount of reforms and things like that. And of course, the people. In form of the money, before I move on to the people, we need to see that these 2 new schemes, we need to be fast-tracking as well as streamlining. A cliche, but to fast-track and do it right is a matter which we need to be able to address. Need to focus on, to some extent, not so low but low-hanging fruits, so that the commercial viability becomes a very major focus for successes that will actually get been seen, and thereafter, of course, promoting of more and more of technology parks, IP reforms, and ownership of IP. The stronger and stronger the industry academy linkage will make a difference. And on the last, I would say that one can speak. At INE, this year we began a program. We knew that there are about 16 lakh engineering students which study in India, 1.6 million. Obviously, we can't reach 1.6 million, that's too large. But if we really focus on the teacher, the trainer who would now train, by just beginning this year with 1,000 teachers, we believe we will actually influence the life of lakhs. And that's essentially what we began as a program. Must acknowledge Infosys who funded this program, and through this collaboration we actually started summertime. We know the teaching staff actually has some amount of time, and this is when we implemented. We brought in AICT, we brought in the best of the IITs, and some amount of standardization that I talked earlier has actually begun. And any of those specifically focused area that we are talking, now getting on more from conversion and not just talking, right from the laboratory levels, how to do things rather than just a classroom kind of a way of teaching.
No, thank you very much. Really very, very pertinent points. Thank you so much. So we have all heard very thoughtful comments and ideas by our panelists. So as we move towards closing this panel discussion, I'll like to give 1 or 2 minutes to each one of you, because now you have heard each other. And I'll quickly ask a very short leading point so that you can think how do you address it. So Professor Ashok Jhunjhunwala, as we look towards Viksit Bharat 2047, what one mindset shift or structural leap do you believe is most critical to unlock India's full innovation potential? One shift, mindset.
Sir, some quick answers. First, India has the ability today. Do not always look outside. It will require consortium to deliver, consortium of a group of multi-institutions, scientists, startups, and industry. Do not ever look at technology alone. Look at economics of products from day one. We very often get caught in technology, do not understand economics. Once again, I will say stop distinguishing between government-funded institutions and private institution or Section 8 companies. You will say, sir, this is happening. I will say, for example, triple ITs, if I take triple ITs which are government-funded, gets PhD scholarship, the PhD scholars of private, the ones which are not government funded, triple ITs do not get it. So it has to go one step further. Finally, government can seed things to begin with, let consortiums have a business model and raise money from VCs and investors to go all the way. I think 10 times more money than what, if you seed by certain amount, 10 times more money, 15 times more money can be raised from VCs and other donations to go on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jhunjhunwala. As always, very crisp. Now let me go to Professor Govind Rangarajan. You reflect on the theme of ESTIC 2025, which is on the screen, Imagine, Inspire and Innovate. Now, how do you envisage India's academic institutions stepping up as catalysts for Viksit Bharat 2047, not just through research excellence, but by action?
Yeah, I think if I have to make one single point, I think we need to develop high quality manpower. As several people have mentioned, we have excellent people in tier 2 and tier 3 institutions. But still I would say that if you want to do deep science, deep tech and frontier tech innovations, the quality training of this manpower is still not yet addressed. So I think we need to scale up, just like we have scaled up enormously in UPI, etc. We need to scale up training of manpower in a big way. And there are a lot of universities training manpower, but quality training is something I think which is missing. And once we have the quality manpower at a large scale, I think a lot of wonders can be achieved.
Thank you. And Lieutenant General Madhuri Kanetkar, let me come to you. What one strategic lever, policy, institutional or mindset, choice is yours, must India activate today to ensure that we deliver on transforming our R&D and innovation landscape by 2047?
I think I'll put a slogan, one nation, only one life, and one good health for everyone. And for that, through innovation. And if we have to innovate, we just decide the why, what, when, how problems and transform from funding projects to investing in missions and outcomes, from publishing papers to solving grand challenges for health, and from individual brilliance to collaborative ecosystems. So for that, I need to get out because I leads to illness. We all need to come in because that leads to wellness.
Thank you. Thank you. And now over to you, Baba Kalyani. What single bold intervention do you believe could most effectively unlock India's industrial innovation potential as we go along?
Well, we heard the panel and Madhuri talked about this, that 60% of India's population is 30 years old. So we are talking to a lot of young people who are very aspirational. So the biggest change that you need to make for the future of this country is to create trust, and therefore we need to create a mindset that creates trust. That's the biggest problem in this country. And the mindset that believes that Bharat can design products and make products in Bharat. This is the true meaning of Atmanirbhar Bharat, a clarion call that has echoed and raised the emotional quotient of almost 1.4 billion people.
Thank you. As rightly said, you have to design in India on our own specifications. I'll just add so that it also adds value to what you are saying. Wonderful. So let me come to Pawan Goenka ji. If you had to write a one-line mission statement for India's innovation ecosystem in 2047, what would it be?
Okay, before I answer that, let me just say, Baba, the industry that you and I have been associated with, at least there we have proven that India can design to Indian specification and make it in India and do very well. So I think there are many other industries that can follow that. I'm talking automotive industry, those of you who didn't catch that. See, I think, Professor Sood, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. There is a very well-established measure of innovation, the GII, the Global Innovation Index, which measures almost everything that has to do with innovation, all inputs, all outputs, policy, education, infrastructure, investment, and impact, right? So therefore, I think we need to aim to do progress in GII. Now, we have come from 66 in 2013 to 38 last year. China had just crossed number 10 for the first time. Sweden, Switzerland, and US are in the top 3. Now, what we have done so far is sort of low-hanging fruit to go from 66 to 38. Now it's going to get even more difficult because now many more things have to be done. Therefore, for 2047, depending on whether you want to be very aggressive or a little bit more realistic, you can aim that we should be in top 10 or you can aim that we should be in top 5. I think top 10 we must achieve, top 5 will be aspirational.
So that's the one mission, one line statement.
One line, so I'm giving you one line.
In the first 10.
Top 10 minimum.
By 2047.
By 2047.
So here is a challenge.
And I think your office should monitor it and look to see what all we need to do to make that.
No, we are taking it seriously. Whatever you are saying, it's wonderful. And now let me turn to Dr. Swaminathan. You have rich experience at the intersection of public health, nutrition and global science policy. What is the strategic investment India must make in agriculture, R&D and related areas to position itself as a global leader in sustainable food system by 2047? We have come a long way. What other things you think need to do?
Yes, given climate change and all the other challenges, I think this is a very critical question. I go back to what Madhuri said about health. I also believe, being a doctor, that's the most important asset that we have for our population. And health depends on the food that we eat. And the food that we eat depends on the food that is grown and that is available and affordable. So I think agriculture really needs to move to an evergreen revolution today, which is looking at 5 E's. The 5 E's are employment. We need to make sure that youth stay in agriculture. They're moving away in hordes because they don't feel that that's a remunerative place. So agro-technologies and new ways of doing things in agriculture and new ways of earning an income. Environmental protection, water, soil health, air pollution, all of these things are impacting, the quality of the food. Biodiversity, we're losing a lot of our agro-biodiversity, so we need to pay attention. Economic growth, of course, farmers, especially small farmers and landless farmers, they also need to see their incomes improve. Energy, we have to use the efficient use of energy. I think solar and renewable needs to really find a bigger space in agriculture. And finally, equity, ensuring social justice. Of course, again, farmers are some of the poorest, the small farmers or landless farmers and fishermen are facing a lot of challenges. So I think this can all be addressed through what all the other panelists have said, coming together, addressing it in a mission mode, having a national challenge. And the Prime Minister has made this, I think, several times in the past few months. He's talked about nutrition security. So clearly, he's concerned about that. And I think we can do it. We have all the components, we have the human resources and the infrastructure that's needed and the ideas. But we have to crack that one big challenge of working together across silos.
Thank you so much. Let me come to Mr. Patil. Again, a very crisp answer to what bold national action you would suggest, which we should take to retain, reskill and elevate its scientific and engineering talent in the AI-driven global knowledge economy.
Providing opportunities and trust. If as Government of India we can truly trust that our people can deliver, and they can deliver better than anywhere else in the world, and that's a capability we see happening. The more and more startups we actually promote on the same fundamental that you trust them, you provide them with opportunities. My fundamental belief is the ability to innovate is the best in Indian talent. Now this is what we need to leverage, and there's no limit to what we can do. There's so many things in this country we can talk of which are better than the most in the world at a completely different price point, at a completely different performance level. Of Sindoor, I can say in defense, just showed what India can do.
Thank you so much. It's truly, truly wonderful to have this very learned panelists, and through this leading questions we have heard their thoughts. It's extremely difficult for me to summarize any of that, because that will be an impossible task. I am sure AI tool may do in few years, not today even, because the range of thoughts, the range of suggestions, the range of vision which has been portrayed is truly inspirational. We all want to have India's technology sovereignty. That is important for strategic autonomy, needless to say, repeated many times. And we need to see how we need to work in the mission mode and achieve a Viksit Bharat by 2047. I'm really sorry that I don't have time to go to all of you to ask questions, though I thought I will have, but just before the organizers throw me out, we have exceeded our time. But the discussion was so very interesting, I did not want to stop the flow of thoughts. I hope organizers will pardon me and not punish me after this. So with this, I think let me leave this thought that whatever you have heard, we will see in our own way how each one of you can really contribute to India's progress on scale. And that's the mission we are launching, which is something we need to see how technological landscape to really come to the next level and we move towards Viksit Bharat. Wonderful panel, and let me end this, and I am told there is a felicitation of panelists for giving so many good ideas, and let's do that quickly, and I think after that we will close it. We are already exceeding our time, and I can see Abhay staring at me. So Abhay, it is going to be over soon. Just bear with me. All right.
Thank you, sir. So before we start the felicitation, I think as audience we should give a round of applause to this brilliance that we have gathered over here. And I would request Professor Sood to convey our regards for taking the time and bringing our ideas, not to the youngsters, to the seniors and the India altogether. So may I request Professor Sood to give mementos to Professor Ashok Jhunjhunwala. Let's continue the round of applause. Professor Govindan Rangarajan. Lieutenant General Madhuri Kanitkar. Shri Baba Kalyani. Dr. Pawan Kumar Goenka. Let's keep the applause going. Thank you. Dr. Soumya Sominathan. Shri J.D. Patil. May I now invite all our esteemed panelists and Professor Sood to kindly come forward for a good photograph and mark this special occasion. Thank you, everyone. With that, we will conclude this enriching panel discussion. We will break for the lunch, but before that, please note at 2:30 in this particular room, we will have our first plenary talk by Sir Enrique Kai. He will talk about and take us to the exciting journey of random walks to graphene, a story of curiosity, discovery, and revolutionary material that shape modern science. You can depart for the designated lunch area, which can be found behind your conference batches. So we look forward to welcome you at 2:25 sharp. Thank you.